Hi, welcome to my talk, and this talk is about Hackbases. If you're not familiar with Hackbases, they are residential hackerspaces, so a place where you can hack and also live. Why are we interested in Hackbases? I'm sure none of you need convincing that there is a problem on our planet. We could talk at great length about the different aspects of the problems. The global situation on planet Earth is one of a number of problems in a large number of different areas, from environmental, such as biodiversity loss, resource depletion, climate change, and also many social areas. So we've seen social unrest around the world, political problems, fake news in particular. And if we look into the root causes of these problems, we can to some degree trace them back to the greater economic system that we have set up over the last few hundred years. And in particular, as individuals, we are living in an economic system where we can serve our own individual interests without really seeing the greater impact that we have on our planet. And ultimately, if we aggregate the impact of all of us totally on our planet, then the net effect is we're causing systemic problems throughout. On top of all of this, most recently we've got the COVID-19 pandemic. So whilst we are aware of a kind of emergency situation that we need to be dealing with, we're all sort of locked down and constrained in our ability to do things. Although also this does provide an opportunity to sort of say, actually, we are going to have to really change how we approach things, and that maybe there is more potential in that. So COVID-19 also has its positive side. This quote by Buckminster Fuller, he's basically saying that if you have a large entrenched system, rather than try to tackle it head on to change it, instead work to cultivate an alternative system in parallel and feed new growth rather than focusing on fighting the old system. And so I think the Hackbase movement in general and our project in Wales, Astralship, is attempting to do that, or be a part of a greater global movement of what we call building a new paradigm economy. The big question for us as a species right now is whether we as a species, as human beings, are able to evolve in a way that is sustainable, whether we are a species are capable of continuing to exist on planet Earth, or whether the human being has run its course and reached its end. We've done so much in the past 2,000 or so years of history, invented so much amazing technology, shown incredible feats of what's possible as a being on this planet. In our history, where we're now facing the greatest challenge our species has ever faced, we're at a point where we now need to answer the question, are human beings a species that's going to be around for another 1,000, 10,000, long-term period, or are we a species that's going to destroy itself in the next few decades? That's really where we've arrived. And previously, until fairly recently, and I'm sure for some people it's still true, the overall paradigm was, in order to be successful in life, you should amass some personal wealth and have some children probably, and leave them in a better position economically as individual units, a better position than you were when you came into this world. But what's happened with the limits of our growth of our system is that now we have to recognize that even if you leave your children in a situation of more personal wealth than you had, that's not going to help them very much on a planet facing systemic collapse. And wealth doesn't mean a lot when you don't have the essential resources to survive. Where do Hackbases come into this? Well, all these problems that we're aware of on our planet are going to need some very smart people to tackle them, and they really need to tackle them from within this alternative paradigm. It doesn't really help if we can only tackle the problems using the machine which is causing the problems in the first place. So if we need global finance to fund giant corporations to do research when they inherently only want profit, every solution that we think we come up with is just going to come up with a number of extra problems. So instead, how can we provide a world where smart people can just get together, live holistically, live sustainably, and come up with solutions from within a new paradigm? And that's what this Hackbase Revolution is all about. I bought this chapel in 2010 without having a very clear idea of what kind of project I wanted to do. In the same year, I sailed over to Ireland with a friend and really caught a bit of a bug for sailing and experiencing how sailing influenced our culture. At first, things went really well and we got quite a lot of money for developing our web app software, particularly in healthcare. Learned some hard lessons about business and ended up losing control of our spin-out creations, but developed a huge amount of learning and got a lot of inspiration for the project that we really wanted to do, which is developing this Astralship innovation Hackbase concept. So a ship is a really good metaphor for a Hackbase. On your ship you have to have everything you need, you have to supply that, and you can go in whatever direction you want to go. So a ship is a vehicle to take you somewhere, and we like to see our astral ship as being the vehicle that's going to take hacker collectives to a new future, new paradigm economy, hopefully a future where human beings can demonstrate the potential of the species. And the other great theme that we like is pirates. We've drawn a lot from pirate history. Now there's a bit of a debate about how good pirates were, and there were certainly some pirates who were probably not very nice people. Of course, we have to compare the pirates to the other people. The establishment were not particularly nice in those days either, and while we don't want to support random acts of violence and theft, we do want to acknowledge that pirates came up with some really good innovations. If you look at the times, some of the most important social innovations like universal suffrage, so pirates had votes on their ships, and social care. Lots of these things were developed first by the pirates at a time when the navy ships were more or less press-ganging individuals, forcing them to sail on their ships. And so at a time when out in the new world, pirates were kind of getting on building a new world, and it felt like, I'm sure to them, that the old world in Europe was completely out of touch with what was going on there. They would make pretty arbitrary, one day England was at war with France, and the next day it was at peace with France but at war with Spain. And I'm sure people living out in the new world didn't really care very much for these kinds of decisions. And so in some ways this feels a bit like a metaphor for what's going on in our world today, where the entrenched system of capital is coming up with new forms of quantitative easing and taking radical steps, having trade wars, etc. And really we don't care a huge amount about that. We want to get on and build the new world, the new paradigm economy from the ground up. And I think the most important appealing feature of pirates for us is the sovereignty that they had. So if you think about it, in those days the only people that really had sovereignty in their lives were the pirates. they owned their own ships. They democratically decided what they wanted to do and were able to pursue their dreams, go where they wanted to go, without needing any kind of approval for anyone who wasn't on board their vessel. And that's the metaphor we like to follow, that we can believe in our dreams, go ahead and build systems that are going to impact the world in a positive way without needing to have any entrenched dogma dictate what we can and can't do. The New World from the 16th to the 19th century was largely the Caribbean. For us, it's a little bit different. The New World is kind of the old world, and that is the rural landscape. For our hack bases, there's a number of reasons we think rural locations are particularly an opportunity. Rural locations often suffered from a kind of brain drain where people needed to move to the cities to get the best jobs, and so the sort of smarter people often gravitated to cities to get better paid jobs, leaving the rural locations often deprived of those thinkers and people. Now, a lot of the reason for this is because of the limits of information connectivity and goods distribution, but really since the development of high-speed internet in rural locations, the game has somewhat changed. Now you can get all the information and goods you need in your rural location just as well as you can in a city. And for us, building our kind of new paradigm economy, we need these closed economic loops. So in particular, we need to be close to our source of food production. So to build our self-sufficient new paradigm economic model, we need to be close to the source of our food. As many of our dependencies, our inputs as we can, we need to provide for ourselves or provide locally in our local economy. And so rural locations, that's obviously much easier to do. And we have a emerging partnership with an organic farm just down the road, and these guys have been doing an amazing job growing organic veg for quite a few years now, and some hackers there have been building this farm horticultural robot. What you can see is a hydraulically driven robot. At the moment it's being remote controlled, but independently some hackers are developing the computer vision and the brains that will go into this soon. And hopefully this is going to effectively be reducing the cost of producing organic veg, which is a really important variable, as obviously there are many problems with the current industrial agricultural approach. I'm sure you're aware of that. Being closer to nature is generally good for human beings. We have better quality air, and closer to living systems is generally fulfilling for human beings. Also, in rural locations, there is an opportunity to bring technology, knowledge and skills to local people who maybe don't have access to it as much as people in urban environments. And we can feel that as a Hackbase, we get a lot of appreciation for the work we do, and we see this as being an important stream of the project, is to provide education, technology to people. Now, there is classically a drawback with rural locations, especially for niche cultures like hacker culture, which is that generally, because there's less people around, you'll probably find less people like you around. But that can be solved with a Hackbase, because you can bring your community of people together that you live with and have a group of like-minded people that you can engage with regularly. Now, having only one Hackbase, that may be limited, but if we can develop networks of Hackbases, then there's a real diversity of opportunities for people to move around and share ideas with a diversity of people whilst living in rural locations. So when I bought the chapel in 2010, the Astralship.org project really started at the beginning of 2017 and had some help from a friendly hacker, Mars, who gave a lot of support to the project. So we came up with this manifesto of things that we believe in and stand for as Astralship. The first one is embrace interdependence. So we acknowledge and embrace the fact that as human beings we are fundamentally dependent upon each other. We can see that more and more, I think, in our global world as certain technologies, for example, certain genetic engineering technologies, become more and more powerful. We ultimately all are tending towards being able to destroy each other if we don't behave appropriately. And we think that human beings need to acknowledge this interdependence, that we shouldn't try to get away from it, we shouldn't try to keep ourselves in separated boxes and reduce the risk of each other. We need to acknowledge that we're all in this thing together. We also believe in radical localism, that really there are limits to how much a human being can comprehend and make sense of, and we only really work at a certain scale. So to keep ourselves stable as a human system, then we need to embrace radical localism. And this also works economically as much as possible. We can get our physical goods and services that we need from our local economy, then that's a much better way to run our planet. We believe in radical positive activism. So as that Buckminster Fuller quote earlier on was saying, rather than attack the current system, which is what we call negative activism and protest, although there may be some use in that, I think it's much more important to start building positive solutions, start demonstrating how human beings can live better, happier, with more well-being and creativity, and working towards the solutions that we need and living more sustainably. The next one is culture can change. Sometimes it feels like we're completely locked on this course and human beings can't change, but we have to realize that we've had decades now of what's actually called in the industry programming and advertising, the latest psychological research in how to manipulate us so that we consume and feel insecure that we don't have enough, and the result of all this are kind of destroying our planet. So our message is that let's try and reverse this. Now, maybe no one's going to pay us to do it, but we can create reverse advertising or spreading positive messages, changing culture in a way that it isn't just about making profit, but is about helping us live in a better way as a species. And enhance innovation. Lots of research has been done in things like design thinking, how to improve innovation. But I think fundamentally for us, the most important thing is that innovation is done with purpose by the innovators. So developing a way of life where people can really strongly connect with their personal purpose and work in that and get into deep states of flow, that's the way to really enhance innovation. Pirates are fun. I've already explained a bit about why pirates were cool and did lots of innovative things. And also we kind of believe in fun fundamentally, in that living with play is important, that work and play should not be separated, that you should be playful in every moment of your work and daily life, and that's something we subscribe to. And finally, humans can do it. We really believe that the human species, despite our shortcomings and the mistakes and things we've made, that we are actually evolving towards being a more aware species, and that we can fundamentally connect with the oneness of all of us, and we can live together in harmony with ourselves, with nature, and live on a more beautiful planet. It's going to be a journey to get there, but fundamentally we believe it's possible. So, as I said, we're trying to bootstrap our own new paradigm economy, building from the grassroots up, and let's have a little look at how our economics works. So our model is probably quite different to what economics looks like for other entities. So we've been doing a lot of foundational work. We've had to install a lot of infrastructure, and we've been doing this with very little capital. So it's been an evolving project, learning about what we are, what we want to do, and how we're going to do it. And we've been sort of building up the skill level of the things we do. So moving from basic infrastructure to more advanced education and IT, and we're working towards this pinnacle where we're doing highly impactful multidisciplinary voyages. We have a number of spaces on the ship. We have our workshop, which we're developing, slowly getting more equipment and steadily bootstrapping. We have our co-working and places where you can work on a laptop. We have our VR space, and I think my favourite spot is the kitchen, where we have amazing vegan food being created by some wonderful chefs. And this is all really about trying to create a holistic community. Hackers as a community need to be able to provide for all our own needs. We're not wanting to be dependent on a commercial paradigm where we can buy everything we need from shops as much as possible. We want to be able to create what we need ourselves and provide the human services we need ourselves. And that's why we are a diverse community. We're not just with technologists, but also artists and facilitators, people with softer skills. It's all an important part of our community. These are some of the technologies that we really like and are using in the project. We're aiming to build replicatable systems, so Nixos is particularly good for that, and our goal is to be able to create a blueprint for turning an abandoned rural building into a hackspace. One of the biggest advantages of being in a rural location is, of course, cost. Buildings in rural locations are much cheaper than in urban locations, and in some cases they are even free. There are actually many historic buildings out there that, if you can provide a convincing offer that you're going to take care and develop the building, they can actually be available for free. And here, this is a palace in India that's been abandoned for quite some time, and once we've developed our base in Snowdonia, we want to think about establishing a network of bases around the world and to reach out to more hackers. We're aware that it's going to be a while before we can supply everything we need, and so this is really a process of transition. We do as much as we can with what we have. It's going to be a while, I think, before we are making our own silicon. It's going to be a while, probably, before we are prototyping our own silicon chips, but it is certainly an area of active interest, whether we can be able to do this in the future. And more we want to create the goods and services as a network that we consume. So let's take a look at the economics of running the Astralship. Our biggest costs are food and energy. We don't have to pay any rent for this building at the moment, so if we can live in a low-cost, lean way, then our major running costs we can take care of locally in the local economy. So we can get most of our food we already get from the local farm, and although at the moment we're not producing any sustainable power, we hope to be able to do this in the near future. We have come up with this scheme of 4 different types of people that are on the ship at any one time. So first of all, we have the crew. Now the crew are the people that make the Astralship possible and provide support to all the other users and are working, building and developing the ship. We also have the Voyagers. So Voyagers are people that maybe come here to work on their own projects, and the crew provide them with everything they need. So the crew's goal is to really optimize the experience for the Voyagers so that they can do the best possible work on whatever challenge or problem they're working on. We also have a group of people that we say are in recovery. These are people that perhaps have experienced burnout in the corporate world and are still struggling to kind of reignite their inner spark, and we think this is an important role for us to play. There's a limit to how many such people we can have at any one time, but we do think it's important that we play a role in healing some of the damage that's been done to so many bright and talented people through burning out in the corporate environment. And finally we have we have guests. So at the moment we have an Airbnb, which I'll come on to explaining next. So why don't we hear from one of our Voyagers, one of our early pioneers testing the Astralship and a member of the CCC hacker community. This is Gamithra. So Gamithra, can you tell us, how's your experience been as being one of our early Voyagers on Astralship?
It's been absolutely great and absolutely unexpected in terms of how great it's been for me and how much it's allowed me to become the person I always wanted to be and to kind of work towards the goals I always wanted to work towards, and how I just got a lot of support from the people and from the environment. And I'm a bit scared actually, because I can't imagine going back not living in a place like this. I can't imagine living in a tiny apartment in a big city with no people around me, no space around me, and we're just rushing and having to run around. Here, it's really quiet. You've got that space, and you've got people around you to support you in that space, and kind of divide tasks in a way that everyone is just doing enough, and everything just works out pretty nicely. And it's one of the main things people need is that feeling of belonging somewhere. This place really facilitates that and kind of provides people that feeling, whereas living alone and living with a small amount of people that you might not even know that well will never kind of provide that feeling of home. I think that's one of the greatest values Astralship has had for me.
That is great.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about what you've been working on while you're here?
Oh, I've been working on myself a lot, just kind of figuring out what I'm doing, what my mission is, and where I want to go with life. Been doing my daily remote work, and been taking on some really new cool projects, and one of them actually turned out to be so cool and so new that it's kind of transformed where my life's going entirely. When I came here I was a different person, and now I'm leaving with all these new things that are happening in my life, and new people I met, even not inside here but online while being here, because I had the space and the time and energy to meet them. And I'm leaving as a totally different person, which is absolutely unexpected but really, really cool. It's like an incubator, like startup incubators. This is like a human incubator. It's awesome.
So this is our model. You can see we have the Astralship, we engage with the farm, we get our food, and we might provide various services and even goods to actors in our local economy. So recently we made some furniture for the farm, and we'll be exchanging that for some vegetables. Now we are interested in setting up a mutual credit system with some partners in the UK, and we'd really like to see this as a potential to cultivate a sustainable green economy in the local area. Now, we imagine transitioning to a slightly more complicated model where Astralship is primarily focused on its global interactions, and we're connecting with our global hacker connections and working on global problems and challenges. But at the same time, we'll be connecting with a local base, a local hackerspace, where we seek to accelerate and support and facilitate local players and local actors to work from the grassroots up, building the local green economy. Now we do have another chapel in the nearby town of Carnarvon, and although this is very early stage, we're envisaging setting up this as a public hackerspace and co-working space for local people, and also a community education space. We really want to try to facilitate the more kind of open source approach that we're very familiar with in hacker world, and convey this message to local people that really knowledge is something that we all benefit if we all share freely with each other, and we can educate each other and skill up each other. So we really want to use this other base for that purpose. I'm going to play a video now, and you will hear some Welsh language in this, and it has both Welsh and English, and it's just an early stage video we've made of the historic chapel that we bought, that we plan to do a project in the future.
Troedio'r llwybr ymlaen.
To walk the way ahead.
Y ddeiar yn atsain dan droed.
Hear the earth beneath us speak.
Ein camau yn guriad calon tuag adre.
Our footsteps marching heartbeats home.
So this is the kind of goal pyramid. As I said, we've been building things up. We started with basic infrastructure and we're slowly developing more advanced projects, technology education, and we're doing lots of live streaming and media production. And so from our income perspective, we have our running costs that we need to keep this project going. Obviously, construction is something which can be very expensive, and we're definitely trying to source as much of our construction materials as possible. There's a local timber yard we're using, but these costs can be quite substantial, and there's a certain amount of we're living without. But our long-term goals is to generate enough income that we can really strongly develop the infrastructure here, and over time, hopefully, we will be able to invest quite a lot of capital in this building. For now, the base of our pyramid is really hosting guests. So we have an Airbnb. That was really our simplest income stream to get started, and we have been quite successful. People have really enjoyed the experience of coming here, and building on top of that, then we have co-working, which is people coming here to work on their own projects and just using the space as a nice space to come and co-work. But our real goal is to host Voyagers. Now, these are quite loosely defined, but it's any kind of experience where people come and use the ship for perhaps a week or two to work on something. And right at the top there, I've put the kind of pinnacle goal is to have multidisciplinary innovation voyages where people with lots of quite advanced skills, perhaps needing quite a lot of serious facilitation to really tackle some giant challenges. And that's definitely the dream, is to curate and produce and support really important voyages that are going to come up with innovations we really need. Now, if 1 in 7,000 people is a astral pirate or someone that would like to live or engage in a hack base and be one of these 50 people, then in the UK there would be 200 of these hack bases dotted around, probably in rural locations, perhaps not too far from major cities, but that would create quite a strong network where probably individuals wouldn't be able to visit all of them. And with these same figures of 1 in 7,000, then globally that would translate to 20,000 hack bases. The UK having about 1% of the global population. Now, if we had 20,000 hack bases around the world, I think we could really have an impact on our planetary situation. And hopefully some of these massive daunting challenges that we're facing could be tackled, and we could start to come up with solutions and start to give some confidence to each other that human beings are really not so bad, and that maybe we can imagine living harmoniously on this planet together and going to the stars one day. Yeah. There are still many challenges ahead. We have still a lot to do. We are very short of capital, and we still need a lot of skills. We've had a huge amount of skills contributed to us on goodwill, and we're still going to need a lot of help, particularly we need architects, people to help us design the blueprints of systems, replicatable systems. We need web developers, marketing people. There's really a huge range of potential skills that are needed, and really the primary requirement is enthusiasm for the mission. If you want any more information about Astralship, please check out astralship.org. There are lots of videos we've been making on PeerTube and also on more mainstream social media platforms. So with that, I'll conclude the talk and ask for any questions.